Greenberg, and he's here to give us a great rousing speech and have a little announcement of his own, I believe. 2 months ago, a series of Tea Party protests erupted across the nation. From northern Maine to southern California, over 500,000 people gathered to protest the burden of higher taxes and rallied in favor of less government and more citizenship. And you may have seen the White House press conference the next day, when the president's spokesman, Robert Gibbs, was asked, "What does President Obama think of this grassroots movement across the United States of America?" Here's what the official spokesman of the President of the United States had to say about the Tea Parties. "I don't know if the President is aware of these events." Think of that. Why is it that we have a political culture that apparently does not listen? Why won't they listen to people like you and me, who know that our right to keep the money that we earn must outweigh the government's power to spend it? Why are the people who are supposed to represent us so opposed to the new ideas that we bring them, even though those ideas are as old as the American founding? Let me tell you a story about one of my colleagues. It's about him, and it's also about me. A couple of my fellow state representatives were sharing a meal. One guy said something about me. It got back to me. He said, "That Greenberg guy, I do not understand him. He goes to the floor of the House and speaks against other legislators' bills." That is the punchline of the story. Think of that. Think of the kind of paralysis and stagnation that you get in government with that kind of attitude. Think of the lack of progress we have in Arkansas because some people think it's bad manners to disagree with other people in public. This attitude is strongest at the very center of political power here in Arkansas. Let me tell you another story about Arkansas' Speaker of the House and the way he tried to tamp down debate over our most recent tax increase, which I opposed earlier this year. Representative Greg Reed, standing on the House floor, was explaining how important it was for us to raise taxes. And everybody in the House was listening because everyone recognized that stripping $90 million out of Arkansas's economy is very serious business. Well, Representative Reed explained why he wanted to tax more and spend more. He said it was because he's a fiscal conservative. Well, the real fiscal conservatives knew on that day that we were going to be outvoted, but we hadn't realized that we were also going to be insulted. And so a couple of us just started laughing at the absurdity of the situation. Now, I guess someone who wants to tax more and spend more can call himself a fiscal conservative. And I guess you could describe a bank robbery as a financial transaction. But there is a risk that people will laugh at you when you talk this way, and I guess a few of us did. Now, when we started laughing in the House, the Speaker of the House got very upset. He wrote on his weblog that the legislators who laughed don't seem to think that they did anything wrong. He scolded us by saying that laughing showed a complete lack of respect for the House of Representatives. He and I have a fundamental disagreement about who was showing disrespect to whom that day. Now, to his credit, the Speaker realized later that he overstepped when he criticized us for laughing that day, and in the face of media criticism, he apologized. But the lesson remains. The attitude that we should never disagree in public is a huge aspect. It's a powerful weapon of the political establishment. In fact, we have a political establishment here in Arkansas that is opposed to openness in government. Now, when I tried to pass a law that would make the criminal record of any elected official in Arkansas open to the public, the way it is in many other states, it was killed on the floor of the House of Representatives thanks to the lobbying of our Attorney General. Do you think you have a right to know which of the people who represent you in government have a criminal record?
Yes.
When we tried to pass a law that would make public the racial preferences that state government uses in affirmative action, an endorsement was endorsed by the United States Civil Rights Commission. It was killed in committee thanks to the lobbying of our governor. Do you think you have a right to know when our state government is treating people unequally by the color of their skin?
Yes.
And when I tried to pass a law that would put our state budget on the internet, an approach that was followed in many states without fail, and it saved the taxpayers money. It was killed by the cost estimates of state bureaucrats who for some reason decided it would cost more in Arkansas than in any other state. Do you think that people have a right to know how their tax dollars are being spent? Even when we manage to pass good legislation through the House, too often the state Senate is where good bills go to die. In fact, the House passed many tax cuts this last session, but typically the guardians of gridlock in the state Senate killed them all. In the House, we passed an income tax cut, but it was killed in the Senate Tax Committee. We passed a sales tax cut. It was killed in the Senate Tax Committee. Getting rid of taxes on used cars? We passed it, killed in the Senate Committee. Tax relief for our brave soldiers defending us in foreign lands? Killed in the Senate Tax Committee. And tax relief for families with disabled kids? Killed in the Senate Tax Committee. If only we had a few more state senators in Arkansas who were less committed to the political establishment and more committed to lower taxes and smaller government spending. Now, my own state senator is retiring, and many people have suggested to me that instead of running for re-election, that I should run for the state Senate instead. Let me ask you, do we need more people in the state Senate who have a track record of standing up for open government, ethical government, individual responsibility, and conservative values?
Yes.
Well, should I run for the state Senate next year?
Yes.
Well, can I have your support next year?
Yes.
Well, in that case, it is settled. And I'll make an official announcement later this year, but I want to make this clear. I want to be your next state senator from Pulaski and Saline County. Let me just say one more word about how we can accomplish our political goals. Right now, these tea parties are like drops of water that are eroding walls of stone. We can do better. In 2009, it's okay to be like drops of water, but we must reach the point that in 2010 and in 2012, we need to be like a hot knife cutting through butter. I want to talk a little bit about how to do this. Let me reference one of the world's great works of literature. Perhaps you're familiar with Peanuts by Charles Schulz. You might remember the Peanuts cartoon where Lucy and Linus are arguing over which television channel to watch. Linus says, "Lucy, why do you always get to pick the TV channel?" And Lucy says, "I want to show you something. These 5 fingers, individually, they're nothing. But when I curl them together like this into a single unit, they form a weapon that is terrible to behold." And Linus says, "Which channel do you want?" And Linus walks out of the room and looks at his own hand, and he says, "Why can't you guys get organized like that?" So I ask you, in Arkansas, we are facing a political establishment which has very few arguments, very few values, very little popular support, but tremendous political organization. So my question to you is, why can't you guys get organized like that? There are 2 ways to do it. And the first is to run for office yourself, and the second way is to help someone else run for office. And if you're interested in that second, I might have a few recommendations for you about what candidates support. If you look around the crowd, you might notice a few people holding up my signs, the ones that say Dan Greenberg on them. If you might be interested in giving me an hour or 2 of volunteer time, please approach those gentlemen, please approach those ladies, and give them your name and address and phone number. I would be so grateful for just a little volunteer assistance from you. And I'll leave you with this. In the long run, the reason that we are going to win the fight to protect freedom in America is that our opponents are lacking something crucial. They believe that government is the best solution to every problem. They believe in big government for everything. They almost worship it. But I believe in something much more powerful. I believe in the power of freedom. We all believe in the power of the individual. And more particularly, I believe in you. Thank you very much. May God bless you.